Welcome to This Explainer. There's a very specific kind of intelligence that psychology almost never talks about. It's the kind of intelligence that has absolutely no standardized test. There's no score, and it's definitely not a credential you can just slap on your resume. It doesn't show up in how fast you can solve a complex math equation. Instead, it shows up in how deeply you understand the person sitting across from you, sometimes before they've even said anything meaningful at all. So today, we're going to be exploring a really rare form of intelligence that allows a small number of people to process the emotional world at a fundamentally different level than everyone else around them. Let me ask you something. Have you spent your entire life burdened by labels? You know the ones. You're too sensitive, you're way too intense, or you're just an overthinker. If you've constantly been told these things, you've probably felt like there's something inherently wrong with how you process the world. You might honestly think you're just, too much for most people to be around comfortably. But what if those labels were entirely wrong? In this explainer, we're going to completely reframe your experience using some incredible insights from psychology and affective neuroscience. The crucial reframing here is a fascinating concept called emotional giftedness. Science actually proves you aren't too much. Actually, researchers are finding that you possess a really rare cognitive and neurological profile. Think of it like this. You have a finely calibrated perceptual instrument that's capable of reading the invisible architecture of human experience at an incredibly high resolution. You aren't broken. Your system is just picking up on microsignals that most people's brains completely filter out as irrelevant background noise. Okay, let's dive into this invisible architecture. Section 1, the perceptual antenna. Sensing the unspoken. Picture this. You walk into a room, and before a single word is even spoken, something inside you just automatically registers the emotional state of the people in it. You notice a tiny shift in someone's posture, a really unique quality of stillness in the air, the way someone's energy just sits in the room before they've even had a chance to put on their good mood performance for the day. Your brain is rapidly collecting these microsignals and delivering a conclusion about how that person is doing, often before they even realize it themselves. Now, this isn't some mystical superpower. It's our first sign, heightened affective forecasting. It's simply a highly calibrated nervous system reading the world at a resolution most people never get to access. Now, society usually slaps the label of cynicism on this. You might be told you're overly suspicious because you immediately sense when someone is being inauthentic. But science calls this high somatic awareness, and it's our sixth sign. Your body is quite literally calibrated to read authenticity the exact same way others read language. When someone is performing friendliness, but their body language is whispering something entirely different, it registers in your system as clearly as a wrong note in a song you've heard 1,000 times. You just can't unhear it. And that leads us right into early pattern detection, our 10th sign. You literally see the thing before it becomes the thing. Have you ever just known deep down when a relationship, a specific situation, or a work environment was completely off? And you end up carrying that uncomfortable knowledge around for weeks or even months before the issue finally becomes visible enough for everybody else to see? It's not pessimism and it's not anxiety. Your emotional and perceptual systems are just working together to detect signals that haven't crossed the threshold of visibility for the average person yet. You feel the shift way before it becomes the event. Moving right along to Section 2, the empathic nervous system, bearing the weight of others. Let's look at the physical toll this kind of intelligence actually takes. So have you ever wondered why you physically absorb a stranger's bad mood? Like a sudden drop in room temperature? Well, neuroscience points to our second sign, highly activated mirror neurons. When you walk past two people having a tense conversation, even if you don't hear a single word they say, something heavy lands right in your chest anyway. The boundary between your emotional experience and theirs is genuinely thin. You don't just understand what they are feeling, you physically feel a version of it yourself. And because of those mirror neurons, you often end up carrying things that were literally never yours to carry. This brings us to sign number 8, hyper-responsive empathic concern. Say someone in a room is slightly uncomfortable. You'll feel this instinctive, almost boundaryless pull to completely reorganize your own behavior just to fix their discomfort. And you'll do this before they even consciously realize their emotional state needs accommodating. Your system responds not just to express distress, but to detected distress. Now, it's a beautiful gift to be able to make someone feel so truly understood, but man, it is a heavy burden if you don't know where they end and you begin. Let's shift gears over to the cognitive side. Section 3, the deep processing mind, decoding the human experience. Okay, so most people stop at surface level behaviors like anger or someone suddenly withdrawing. But you possess our third sign, an implicit theory of mind. You just naturally peel back the layers. Before someone even finishes explaining a conflict to you, you immediately sense the unmet need and the underlying fear or wound that's actually driving their behavior. You see 2 or 3 layers below the surface of what people are presenting. You understand exactly why they do what they do in a way that often leaves them totally shocked, asking, wait, how on earth did you know that? Now, how many times have you been accused of overthinking? Maybe you've agonized over a simple 2-word text message for 3 whole days after you received it. Well, guess what? This isn't rumination, and you aren't just stuck. This is sign number 4, deep processing. When a heavy conversation ends, most folks move on in a couple of hours, but you might still be sitting with it days later. Why? Because your mind is just doing what it was built to do. It's extracting the full, layered meaning of the experience from every different angle, finding connections and building a much richer understanding, rather than just grabbing the surface level and tossing the rest away. Which naturally leads us to our 7th sign, high emotional granularity. You don't just feel happy or sad in broad, undifferentiated strokes, no. You feel a very specific quality of contentment, or maybe the particular heavy weight of a specific loss at a specific time in your life. Your emotional experience is incredibly high resolution. And let me be really clear about something. This incredibly wide emotional range is not a burden. It is a highly sophisticated instrument. It allows you to navigate life's subtleties and gives you vastly better interpersonal accuracy than folks who only ever experience emotions in broad strokes. All of this really culminates in our 9th sign. Emotionally gifted people are, in a very real sense, natural psychologists. This is innate psychological insight. Even if you've never cracked open a psychology textbook or spent a single day in therapy, you possess this fundamental orientation toward the interior life of human beings. You naturally read the subtext that most people never even learn to see, understanding the complex dynamics of a room or a relationship decades ahead of when others might arrive at the exact same conclusion. And that brings us to our final theme, Section 4, the cost of emotional porosity, the weight and the gift. Here we have sign number 5, high emotional porosity. This totally explains that deep, invisible exhaustion you feel at the end of a seemingly ordinary day. It's not physical fatigue, and it's not from a crazy busy schedule. It's the sheer exhaustion of having a thinner membrane between yourself and the environment around you. You act like an emotional sponge in a room full of water. You're constantly absorbing the emotional residue of interactions, unspoken tensions, and feelings underneath feelings that everyone else just breezes right through without noticing. But remember, this isn't a deficiency. Your system is simply built for incredible depth rather than blunt efficiency. Listen, if you're recognizing yourself in these signs, you've probably spent a huge chunk of your life being told you have a flaw that needs fixing, that you need to toughen up, just let things go, or develop a thicker skin. But you know what? Those descriptions came from people who don't possess what you possess. Because they were entirely unable to understand it, they just defaulted to calling it a problem. But this is actually a rare, beautiful feature. You are not broken. You are built for a deep, unparalleled presence with others. All right, let's step back and look at the full picture. Here are the 10 signs of emotional giftedness we've unpacked today, from heightened effective forecasting and implicit theory of mind, all the way to high emotional granularity and early pattern detection. Now, none of these are ever going to show up on a standardized test. None of them sit on a polished resume, but together they map out a complete scientific architecture. They prove that you are operating a profoundly attuned, highly calibrated instrument in a world that is frankly often just too loud and too fast to accommodate it. Which brings us to one final thought for you to chew on. Which of these 10 signs have you been living your whole life without a name for? Take a moment to really reflect on your own invisible architecture today. You weren't built for a shallow life. You were built to understand the world at a depth most people glimpse only briefly, if they see it at all. And the most profound realization here is that what you and everyone else might have thought was your biggest problem was actually your greatest gift all along. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll catch you next time.